Hello, welcome again, or welcome for the first time in this show for all my fellow sensitive human beings, like perhaps you are. My name is Gosha. This episode, I want to start by talking about something that just happened to me maybe a week ago. So I was in a town that is nearby, maybe an hour drive from where I live, and I like going there because it's got a lot of trees, and I miss trees in my town. I live on the coast, but I have this deep connection with leafy trees, and they have a huge, beautiful park in that town. I went there and I went there for maybe fifth time already to read my book, but I was drawn to a little square somewhere, okay? And I didn't know that part of town that well at all, but it felt like almost something was calling me. And I respond very well to calls of adventure, so I just followed my intuition and I went there and I discovered this little cute square that seemed like everyone had forgotten it, and it felt like it was all there just waiting for me. Okay, there was no one there, but I decided it was just waiting for me to sit down with my book. There was a nice fountain, so I could hear the water in the background, and it was just super nice, super cool. And it didn't take me long to start taking notes and reflecting on this experience, and how wherever I go, like sightseeing or as a tourist, or even when I lived in huge cities like London or all other places where I lived, there I would always found by this weird pull spot of nature, or I would hear a bird amidst all the noise of the town. Like you hear all the buses and traffic and people yelling on the street in London, but I would always pick up this lovely, this sweet tune of a bird, and I would share it with my ex-partner or a friend, and they would be like, really, there is a bird? I can't hear it. But I would always hear a bird, and I would always be pulled to this weird arched doorway where this old woman has planted all these huge garden in just like a building or something like that. Or like in this example, I would just find this secluded, abandoned little square that maybe some visionary architect decided to put in there amidst all the blocks and all the residential buildings, but I would just find it by just following my instinct. And I wanted to talk about this subject here in this episode, how sensitive people have this natural pull to nature. And not only nature, they have a pull to life. The higher than average sensitivity that I've developed made me react very strongly to so many things. You can say disproportionately to mild stimuli, and maybe you can relate to that as well. But what happens is that we were brought up in this world that is not exactly built and designed to respect a natural human nature. It's been built to serve different priorities over time. As humanity, as societies, we created towns, create culture, created things that would serve different priorities than you might be feeling pulled towards. So the buildings, the towns, the cities were built to serve the more industrious aspect of evolution, where it would just serve the purpose to feed as many people as possible and concentrate them around the factories, around the workplaces, around the places of business. So it was not really prioritized to fit human needs, right? And we, as highly sensitive people or sensitive people, whatever you call yourself, or very sensitive person, or doesn't matter. I'm not really here to look for labels. I'm just describing the state of sensitivity to something, a state of sensitivity to any imbalance, to disharmony. That's why we might react strongly to huge groups of people with a lot of noise, right? You might be very reactive to harsh light, especially artificial light, right? There could be a heightened intensity in your sensory perception where you smell something weird. For example, I have a super strong sense of smell, and that always has been a case where I don't have to worry about mold contamination probably anywhere, because I can smell a tiny spot of mold on one of the fruits in my house, and I would smell it for meters and meters away when the fruit starts going off. So I'm so deeply connected to life, and the fluctuations, the imbalance, the disorder, and disharmony. And this is where all the emotions and reactions come in place. Your sensitivity and the intensity with which you are perceiving reality might be super strong, and you might be also highly reactive, like unconsciously reactive, to the extent that you might be actually avoiding so many things because, well, they just overwhelm you and you don't know what to do with them. Now, over the course of the last decade of my life, where I went through healing a disease, a chronic disease, through understanding my internal perception of reality and working with my senses and my brain and body connection, how I associate different senses that arise in me to what is happening outside or in my body even. And I retrained myself completely. So I am still a very sensitive person, and actually I've developed more of connection to that sensitivity over the last decade of my life. However, I'm not reacting to the sensitivity quite as strongly. Actually, I can tolerate so many stimuli that I couldn't, and unconsciously sometimes I would numb out or dissociate or just disappear. It was so strong, I was not even aware that I was sensitive. I would just immediately freeze, and maybe that's also part of your experience. The thing is that as I progressed through these years, I also understood how emotions come in place to signal the out of order state that my body would be resisting towards or would be reacting with the so-called negative emotions. And that would be not just to like stimuli such as light or smells or noise, these kind of things, but to disorder in environment, in things that are not true, not harmonious to me as a human being. What do I mean by this? I would feel very strongly when I would see mistreatment of some kind, right? And that would really deeply affect me. And the same would go when someone says something maybe unfair to me, and I would take it very, very personally. And these reactions, just like maybe in your experience, you had similar ones, but also the responses very disproportionate to physical stimuli, but to environment in emotional way, how we interact with people and how we sense what is in discordance, in this harmony to our human nature, in our deep soul balanced state, which is the healthy state. So actually what we can sense through emotions, and I talk all about this in my previous YouTube videos, so you can find them on my channel if you want to go back. But we basically have this super deep connection to life force energy that is manifested through highly exaggerated reactions. They almost feel like pain at times when you are reacting very highly to something that doesn't feel right. Now, there is a downside to it. There are two aspects that I want to bring to the table here, because not only we can sense nature, as in the story I shared with you, where you get pulled to this amazing little pond or something like that in the middle of, huge city, and you just feel like it's like an oasis to you. You feel like the thirsty animal on the desert that is being pulled by this magical force to this oasis on like huge desert, and you just follow this impulse, you just follow this gut. And without this, we also feel more disconnected. So there is the flip side, right? So you feel connected more when it's available, you feel more disconnected when it's not available. And just like I described to you, the sense of harmony and life that we are being pulled towards, the growth, the perpetual evolution, and becoming more of ourselves, growing into ourselves, can also be stifled. And therefore, this is when we feel the negative emotions, when something feels like it's blocking our growth, like it's blocking our flourishing, like it's blocking our deeper connection to beauty or other people. So this is one aspect, this fact that people around us, the less sensitive people, or those who are sensitive but are not so aware, will readily harm another person, because we were brought up, we were conditioned in this society that doesn't teach us awareness, that doesn't teach us the emotional intelligence, that doesn't teach us that emotions are the source of guidance. They're not something to be acting out on, although, there are instances where it's healthy, but in general, idea behind emotions, we are designed to use them as a messaging system to guide us towards our evolution, to guide us towards our flourishing, our blooming, our becoming more of ourselves. And when you feel the negative emotions, this is when it signals to you and me that there is a belief, there is still a sense of something that pulls us to our lower self, to the realm of just trying to survive. In this realm, we are just believing in scarcity, we are not interacting with other human beings as in collaboration, but just close of mind, of competing and self-comparison, where you feel like only one person can win. And these are the stories that we were brought up around. They were given to us through our culture, maybe through our parents, and they were repeated and repeated through the years of growing up. So these beliefs, they block us and they possess us through those negative emotions, where we believe in the narratives that arise in these states, rather than listening to the emotions as what they are, to knowing that we are misaligned from our nature, misaligned from the upward growth, the life that wants to evolve through us. And I know it may sound a little bit abstract and philosophical at this point, but I can just give you a very down-to-earth examples that would illustrate this from the time when I had a job and I worked in a corporate environment for quite some time, even as a creative. But there were situations that would stifle my growth, and maybe there would be a manager that would tell me, well, you have to do it this way. We don't do things like you do. You have to do things as we were asked, not through your visionary and imaginative way, which was eventually much better because I had a vision of how things could evolve. But he couldn't see this. Maybe your ideas as well are kind of moving beyond what is. We want to create, we want to evolve, we want to bring in like evolution, right? Most of the times, maybe you can relate, but maybe not. It's just my story. And the negative emotions I got from these situations were, oh my God, this person really doesn't get me, so I have to adapt myself to what he needs of me. Otherwise, I will lose this job. I will end up, on the street, like all these stories in our mind. I will end up homeless, and I just have to basically squish myself into his standards, to his narrow-mindedness, and make myself fit in this reality, right? So rather than listening to the negative emotion as in, hey, this guy doesn't allow you to evolve and you are squished in this environment. And the belief behind this was just, you just have to fit in, you just have to conform to this reality. But actually the message behind emotions, which is so heightened in us and so much more exaggerated and sensitized by these experiences, by the unfairness, the message is like, this is not your place. The message is, you need to upgrade your beliefs into knowing that there is a better place for you. You're just wasting your time here. And yes, there were times where staying in some situations taught me a lot about my life, taught me a lot about myself. But I stagnated in these situations, and life is all about moving. It's like a circle of life. all the time, where we need to be picking up the information and doing something with it, evolving. But we were brought up in the atmosphere that, you know, you just have to fit, you can't make mistakes, and, you know, following your gut and following a call to adventure means stepping into uncertainty. And our nervous system didn't like that. It was all about staying safe, but staying safe in the way we were brought up in meant needing to secure a place of belonging, quote unquote, where we would be accepted. But really, this is a really outdated way of approaching. It's much more aligned to a human nature to find belonging inside of you, to find self-approval, sustenance, and self-acceptance inside of you. So you are creating your life from an overflowing state where you are not needing to get that approval and just doing whatever you can, whatever anyone would ask of you, slaving for a few words of approval or a nod, which is nowhere near as fulfilling as finding that sustenance and connection to your core self that I speak about all the time in my previous episodes. You can go back to them. But this is what informs you to make the next right step based on a higher choice that propels you towards that evolution, fulfillment, connection, all based on your humanity. You will be able then to make the choices that don't ask of you that you have to avoid certain situations unless you choose to, but not out of fear, but out of a higher choice. So you're not creating your life through the reference point of what you don't want, but creating life on your terms, creating life towards what you want to see based on what's best for me, what feels yummy, what feels nourishing, what feels delicious and sustainable, you know? And this is what I've been doing for the last years. And whenever I hit a wall, whenever I feel resistance, this is where I always examine what's going on. And sometimes resistance is just like this plateau where you do have to integrate the past lessons, because also evolution needs a little bit of kind of winter time where you just integrate, when you digest, when you let things assimilate, so that come spring you can go out there and, you know, create again. And I hope I'm making myself clear in the way that we as highly sensitive people are all the time reacting to these calls from life, from nature. But what we need to do is bring awareness in how we answer these calls. And like I told you, for me, it's through making these conscious choices all the time. And I created a free guide that you can download from the link in the description of this episode, where I explain how I create my choices, how I decide. The uncertainty that you have, the indecision, the self-doubt that, you know, is constantly asking what this other person wants. How can I fit myself more in this reality? How can I make myself more that? But you will get to flourish when you start asking yourself, what's best for me? And this free guide explains all of that, so you can download it for sure. But other than this, it's all about understanding emotions, understanding what they are and understanding what they're calling for, and also understanding that your internal perceptions, your sensory perceptions, and the way you process information is not necessarily representing the reality of things. This is just your internal experience. And as much as you can shed light to the differences of a life flow and not resisting the flow of life, which causes a lot of anxiety, but knowing how to dance with life and then finding that healthy balance where you don't feel like you are cornered all the time, like you have to get rid of this, and then you are, escaping life. Because so many sensitive people that came to work with me, they cut out so many things out of their life because they were afraid. Oh, this is gonna cause this kind of sensation. This is gonna cause me fear. This is gonna make me feel, okay, so there is driving yourself through life, through the choices based on fear all the time. Fear, and you feel cornered, so this is the only thing I can do, right? And this is not a life to live, trust me. Life that you want to live is based on creating, based on understanding your power, your sensations, your perception of reality, and finding a level of comfort around them. When you shed some light on that, you will be able to tell where you can find a healthy balance, because this is where, the word sensitization comes from, where over time the stimuli compound so much that we react panically to some things. But you can find a certain freedom even around the things that you used to fear. Not that you will have to expose yourself fully to the things that don't serve you, but you will not feel so cornered. You will find much more freedom and comfort around these ideas. This is what I teach to my clients. This is part of my program where there is this aspect of going through understanding of how your perceptions can be softened. They don't have to be so harsh and so chaotic, where you can settle into yourself, calm this nervous system and this high reactivity to a comfortable state from which you can create consciously and with awareness. All on your terms. It's all about creating a sustainable life. This is such a big topic for me, and this is all I'm so excited about teaching here. Just give yourself some time to digest what I was talking about, and maybe journal around this, where you have been called to adventure, where you have been called to life, but you reacted with fear. But definitely, if you want to dive deeper into your own transformation, you can reach out to me for one-on-one coaching. This is my offering at this moment. And don't forget to download that free guide that I offer. It can get you started with some paradigm shifts. For now, I hope it has been useful, that it will give you a permission to be more of accepting of your internal states, more accepting of your unique nature, and validate these instincts to some extent, because it's really, really important that you give yourself a permission slip to be who you are so that you can flourish, because life is all about becoming more of who you are rather than trying to be someone else. For now, thank you for listening, and I hope to meet you in the next episode.